In 1978, 15-year-old Mary Vincent, far from home, without money or transportation, decided to hitchhike to her next destination. A man picked her up, and a horrifying sequence of events would follow, leading to an incredible survival story, a horrible miscarriage of justice, and a murder that should have never been allowed to happen.
Timothy McVeigh was arrested by local authorities.
That's where the guardrail, at the end of the guardrail.
It was like a black hole. It was like like a crack. And everything that fell into that crack just disappeared.
Mary Vincent was born in 1963 and grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. She was one of 7 children, living with her mother, a former blackjack dealer, and her father, who worked as a mechanic. She was a typical teenager and enjoyed competitive dancing. Sadly, her parents decided to divorce, and Mary Vincent, along with her boyfriend, traveled to California. There, the two lived out of a car for a while until her boyfriend was arrested for the raping of another girl. Mary Vincent was now on her own and made the decision to hitchhike to her grandfather's home in Berkeley, California. During the 1970s, hitchhiking was much more commonplace than it is today and seen as relatively safe, especially if hitchhiking in groups. In Mary Vincent's case, however, she was picked up by a man named Lawrence Singleton, who would turn out to be anything but safe. Even though she was there with 2 other hitchhikers, Singleton explained that he only had room in the van for 1. Mary climbed in anyway against her better judgment and was told that he would take her as far as Interstate 5. However, kept driving past this point, prompting Mary, feeling very uneasy at this time, to ask where he was going. He turned around, explaining that he was just an honest man who made a simple mistake. Later, he said he needed a bathroom break and stopped the van. Mary got out as well, just to stretch her legs, and it was around this time when her nightmare began. Singleton knocked her out with a sledgehammer, tied her hands, dragged her to the back of the van, and repeatedly raped her throughout the night. Early the next morning, Mary begged him to let her go. Instead, he took a hatchet and brutally chopped off both of her arms, threw her off a 30-foot cliff near Del Puerto Canyon, and left her to die on the concrete pipe where she landed. The brutality of this assault is at a level almost unheard of. Not only did he rape and attempt to kill her, but he did so by chopping off her arms and leaving her to bleed out. He assumed that she was dead already, or would quickly die of blood loss with no way to do anything about it. He was wrong.
I felt all the pain, the sharpness, the burning, and when my blood was leaking out of my body, I felt the hot ooze just flowing out of me. I felt everything.
Despite the urge to just give up, end the pain, and accept death, the traumatized 15-year-old took action, packing the stumps of her arms with dirt in order to slow down the bleeding. She climbed her way back to the road and walked 3 miles, holding her hands up in the air in order to prevent as much blood loss as possible, as well as contain the muscles inside. 2 men driving along saw her and were so terrified at the sight that they drove off. Fortunately, the next car stopped and took her to a hospital. Miraculously, Mary survived after a long and intense surgery. Doctors had to remove parts of her legs just to save what was left of her arms. She was given prosthetics and had to go through endless hours of physical therapy, not to mention psychotherapy, to help her with the trauma caused by the horrors that no one should ever have to go through. In the hospital, she stayed up late at nights helping police to develop a composite sketch and attempt to identify her attacker. Her descriptions were so clear that Lawrence Singleton's neighbor immediately recognized him. He was promptly arrested and charged with kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder. With an amazing survival story, Mary Vincent's life would go on, albeit without her arms, and Singleton would be tried and convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life, where he could no longer rape and attempt to kill innocent women. At least, this is how the story should have ended. Instead, due to California's ridiculously lenient sentencing guidelines at the time, the judge could only sentence Singleton to a mere 14 years in prison. The judge said, if I had the power, I would sentence him to prison for the rest of his natural life. Mary's testimony helped convict him, but no one could keep him behind bars for long. In fact, he didn't even serve close to the 14 years he went to prison for. He was paroled for good behavior after 8 short years. Less time than he deserved, even had he let her go before chopping off her arms. He served 8 years for raping, torturing, and brutally dismembering a minor. He was released despite the fact that various psychiatrists who examined him reported that he had major personality disorders and was capable of angry and destructive outbursts on those weaker than he. He didn't even have to pay for his crimes monetarily, despite a judge ruling in favor of Mary for $2.56 million in a civil lawsuit because Singleton was unemployed and poor. Mary could never collect. The public outrage displayed at his release led to the Singleton Bill, which requires at least 25 years of prison time for those whose crimes involve torture. Upon his release, no community would accept him, and he had to serve his parole in a trailer on the grounds of San Quentin Prison. When he was finally completely free, he moved to Florida. Not surprisingly, he did not take advantage of this second chance, and he certainly did not deserve. He spent years going in and out of jail for theft until the day came in 1997 when he attacked another innocent woman. Singleton's neighbors heard horrifying screams coming from his house and called 911. When first responders arrived, it was too late. They found the body of 31-year-old Roxanne Hayes, a mother of 3, covered in blood and stab wounds. Mary Vincent traveled to Florida to testify against Singleton, explaining what he had done to her. Because he had now killed somebody, the judge could make sure that this would never happen again. He sentenced Singleton to death. However, Singleton died of cancer in 2001 before the execution could take place. The horrific nature of Singleton's first crime did help change the laws in California, but a case like this helps to fuel debates over the differences in sentencing between attempted murder and murder. The sin is effectively the same. One person tries to kill another. Should the fact that they were unsuccessful mean a much more lenient sentence? Of course, the final consequence of an act will always have an impact. However, a person who rapes and then attempts to murder someone is just as much of a monster as someone who rapes and succeeds in murdering someone. This is a person who does not belong in society. Mary Vincent struggled just to have a normal life, but eventually she had 2 children and founded the Mary Vincent Foundation to help other survivors of violent crimes. She found art as a passion and learned to paint and draw using specialized prosthetics that she invented. She was a victim of unspeakable violence and had gone through years of emotional and physical pain, but is now thriving and mostly at peace.
I wake up to it every day. Just waking up to no hands.
Sadly, the same cannot be said for Roxanne Hayes, who should have never had to come face to face with a man like Lawrence Singleton after the crimes he committed. Perhaps there was little to nothing anyone could have done to save Mary Vincent's arms, but a terrible miscarriage of justice cost Roxanne Hayes her life. Thank you for checking out today's video, the first in a series of true crime videos that will be on a playlist here on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. Check out some of the other content as well. Please let me know your thoughts on this chilling case, and we will talk to you in the next video.